Welcome to Club E. Hi, I'm Rick Brimacombe of Brimacombe and Associates. I'm your architect of business growth and will work with you to unlock your potential and amplify the scale of your company. Today, we are talking about possibilities, reimagined support. I want to thank our sponsors, Irish Titan, an e-commerce and web development firm, Highland Bank, a locally owned community bank, Romaine Berg, a digital marketing agency, Schwegman, Lumberg, Woosner, an intellectual property law firm, and Voyager U, a catalytic gateway for building your independent work life. Please hit the subscribe button below. Also, if you feel like it, the like button as well. That will allow us to deliver better content to you, our wonderful audience. And a reminder, you can now catch Club E on your favorite podcast platform, whether it be Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and many others. All right, with that, I would like to introduce today's guest, Christina Brandt. Christina is founder and president of ReImagine Possibilities. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you.
And we have Christina's email address in the comments field, and that will allow you to connect up with Christina if you would like, but you can always reach out to me as well, and I will connect you if you would like that. All right, Christina, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your firm, and the variety of things that you're up to these days.
Great. Well, may I first say a huge thank you to you. This is quite an honor and a privilege to be your guest, so thank you for this opportunity. So, all right. And as I don't know if you remember, Rick, but when we were first introduced, I'm not very good at talking about myself. So
I do, and you're going to do great because after we've gotten together a few times and you warm up a little bit and you do great. So just think of this as one of our various business chats that we've had at the events around town. So you're going to do great.
So, all right. So here goes. I am a mom of 3 boys. And as I was sharing with you, 32, 29, and 27. 2 granddaughters that are 11 and 5. I'm the second born oldest girl of 5 siblings. So some of my loves are time and dinners with my boys and their families. Everything beach. I love the water. I love my feet in the sand, the sunrise, the sunsets. I really miss world traveling. I used to do it about 50, 60% of the time. Don't miss the airports and some of the long flights, but I miss that whole dynamic. I like being fireside, wine tastings, summers. This has been a fabulous summer to me. Maybe not to everybody, but I've spent a lot of time out on my patio, hanging out and working. I enjoy photography, writing, reading. And then if I have time to give back or get involved, my causes are primarily anything related to children, domestic violence, homelessness, and the military. I have one of my sons is, he served in 2012. So a little bit of my personal stuff.
Sure. And what branch of the military was your son in?
He was a National Guard.
Okay. All right.
So
and then we touched on a little bit, your fishing skills. Are they up to date, or is that something you used to do more than you do now? Understand you have a fabulous trophy there in the house.
Yeah, my fishing skills average about once or twice a year when we're on a family vacation in northern Minnesota. And we fish vermilion a lot now.
Okay.
So, and I have been known to be the one that occasionally will get the walleye when nobody else is, but that doesn't always happen.
All right, fair enough. And you mentioned that you like your meals. So do you also cook up the fish, or are they all thrown back, or the trophies you keep?
I am the one that cooks the walleye, usually when we catch it. I tend to just saute it in the butter with seasoning, and it turns out pretty good. Squirt the lemon on it. Sometimes, of course, my husband will step in and beer batter him, but I mean, we are a cooking family. My oldest son is a gourmet cook. He's fabulous. So we try a lot of stuff.
And then you also have, speaking of your son, you also have a kitchen product that the two of you've done, correct?
We do. And I was going to share that. Yep. He launched.
You're gonna share it later or share it now?
Whichever you want. I can share it now.
It's up to you.
Yeah, no, my son started up his own company pursuing his passions to innovate. And the first invention that he has is a patented kitchen gadget that we call the DB chopper. And it's a redesign of an antique item that we all grew up with. And it is truly the best way to ground your beef while you're cooking it. So, if you are a fan of Mexican or Italian or anything that you're grounding beef or sausage, it is truly the best way to do it.
And how can somebody learn more about this product, or where can they find and purchase this product?
So we currently right now market it through our own website, which is the dbrandtco.com. And then we
and how do you can you spell that out, Christina? What?
Yeah, absolutely. dbrandtco.com. And then we had a reselling partnership and then we've also been negotiating. Well, I've been trying to negotiate with a lot of resellers, and it should be coming to QVC in January. And then I've been trying to also find a partner or two that might want to consider private labeling it. So working all the directions, the direct, the resellers, the partnerships. So
okay. And again, the website was dbrandt, BRANDT.co.com, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
So that probably leads into looking at your background, because food hospitality is part of your upbringing. So after thinking a little bit about your bio and after getting to know you over the years, I'm curious, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So obviously it does not look like I had any straight path. I have a lot of things that I'm juggling. And as a second grader, I thought I wanted to be a cleaning lady. And I started a business and got a couple of my neighbors to be willing to hire me. In high school, when you're doing those tests to prepare you for college, I always came up very high in social work. And so I always knew I kind of wanted to help people. But what has really stuck through the years is, I can almost see it clearly, as an assignment in a religion class where we had to write about what we wanted to do. And I wrote, I want to make a difference. And I know everybody wants to most people want to make a difference. But it was really like, I really wanted to create significance and meaning for others. And this is a theme that just keeps coming up over and over again for me. In my self-discovery work and so forth. So very fluffy, big picture, but when I grew up, I wanted to make a difference. And I'm a huge fan of the quote that Maya, I always mess up her name, Angelou, where she talks about how people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you do, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. It's kind of been like a guiding piece.
Yep. So that's a wonderful wonderful goal and something to strive for. You had some inspiration for that, and I'm assuming that you had a particular mentor or mentors along your life journey. So talk a little bit about that, your inspiration as well as your mentor or mentors.
So Do you want me to backtrack though, so you know what I did for 3 decades, or do you want to?
Sure, sure, sure.
Because it kind of
You,
ties all together. So,
you get to do it any way you want. I was just leading the conversation, so you get to do it any way you want.
so, well, my history is in the fact that I was third generation of a family business serving the hospitality industry. So I'm skilled in product, concept to guest experience. I rose through the ranks as the Girl Friday, up to first female president. I spent well over 50 or a decade plus years in the roles of VP of marketing and sales and overseeing the product management. Interacting with international supply chains, serving small businesses to multi-billion-dollar companies, business to business and business to C through the sales revenue channels. My team and I were recipients of a number of sales awards, which was very cool. I negotiated partnerships, mergers, acquisitions that doubled the product offering. And under my presidency, I led unprecedented success to consistently achieve and exceed financial goals. What was very important to me as part of my background was fostering a culture of cross-departmental cooperation. So that's a little bit of my background. So, and then when you're talking about what is inspiring me, well, and now I continue as a lifelong entrepreneur, as you already shared, that with founding my own business. It's a coaching advising business called ReImagine Possibilities. The old tagline of creating, coaching, and connecting to inspire a better life, a better way. And what's inspired me through the years, to jump back to that, is my self-discovery work, which I was just sharing a little bit, I think, when we were talking about something. So what inspires me is self-discovery work, as well as gratitude inspires me. Understanding stories is a big thing that inspires me. That's what plays off of discovery, self-discovery, is you're unpacking your story. And that's a little bit too of what narrative coaching is all about. Is narrative coaching, you tell your story, you unpack your story, you repack your story, and you write your story going forward. So stories is a big deal. And I'm a big believer in understanding mine and how it evolves, but also understanding other people's stories. Kind of just like the book, The 4 Agreements, talks about, is that we all see the world through our own filters, our own story. And the agreement, don't take anything personal, which was a big one for me, helped me really turn that around to be inspired by understanding other people's stories and putting myself in their shoes. So a lot of inspiration around the idea of stories. And then, like I said, gratitude, acts of kindness, the ocean, of course, my kids. And my daughters, it's amazing when you watch your granddaughter and you see yourself in them, or you just, there's so much to find inspiration in them.
Absolutely.
I'm very spiritual, so I do find inspiration that way. And then I do this activity, which I call brain dumping. That's basically like journaling, but it's a stream of consciousness where you're not trying to journal per se. And it's amazing how much inspiration I can get through that by working through a conflict, having a new insight, that kind of stuff. So, and then you asked about mentor.
Yeah.
The obvious mentor would be my dad. Yep. And he was just, we had a fabulous relationship. We were very much alike. And I loved his leadership style. He was pretty much hands off, which allowed me to develop a ton of confidence and gave me wings that allowed me to fly. So think of him all the time. He was very supportive, as most fathers are, of their daughters in everything that I did. One thing that I always think was funny is he would never let me pick my own high school classes. He always had to always had to pick my curriculum. And we had a big disagreement over, I wanted to do biology. And he thought because of my math skills, I should do physics chem. Was not a good situation.
It wasn't good.
No, but he was out. Yeah. So dad would be a good mentor.
All right. So you had your father as a mentor. You had all these many things that provided inspiration. I was writing them down because a good reminder for myself. But was it ultimately that wanting to make a difference that led you to the family business?
It wasn't my plan, but it did become my passion. So I love my legacy story. My grandparents came to Minneapolis, started a restaurant. My grandfather invented products to use in the restaurant. My dad, being an only child, was heir to both. He expanded upon the ideas of the supply company that was my background to maintain products that to honor products that maintain the integrity of the food and beverage, but he expanded the product line to products that would provided guest experience and left a lasting impression. And then he was also responsible for growing the business across the nation. So I had the incredibly good fortune of working in the business at just the right time. It was small enough then that I worked every role and or department. And through the hard work and hands-on knowledge, I gained an incredible business education. At a pivotal time, I was working both the restaurant and the supply company at that time. Dad and I were having dinner and he had asked me, do you think you might want to take over the supply company in the future? And that was I didn't really have a vision of what I was doing at that point. And that changed it all for me. The company became like the fourth child for me. And then 25 years later, 700% plus growth, a much larger team, he named me his successor. My 3 boys were part of the business and they all visualized being the next generation. So I share all that. Well, and then the hospitality industry and the actual company themselves became, a second family to me. And so I share all that because I thought I was making a difference working in a lifestyle business. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I could carry on my grandfather and my father's legacy, and then to make it, to have the passion in my boys to want to take it over, felt like I was making a difference.
So talk a little bit about where you're at now. You had all those experiences leading you to where you are today. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I do, now I am doing, I am one of those people that went from a second act or from a first act of a career to a second act of giving back. And so another unplanned opportunity, but a fascinating journey, both challenging and rewarding. I pursued life coaching certifications as I was trying to figure out what next. Acquired 3, and that's what led me to starting up my own advising coaching company. I always kind of say what else is a lifelong entrepreneur supposed to do with a crazy breadth and depth of experience? It's pretty hard to, not that I don't want to work for somebody else, but it's pretty hard to go and do that. So, and in parallel, as we talked a little bit about, I help manage, I'm the managing member of my son's company, and we are fulfilling his dream of working with his mom. And this was a pretty, I want to just share a little story. It was just a pretty vulnerable time to work through all this. And something that I thought was very ironic was back to my self-discovery work. Part of those activities would be like, oh, if you weren't doing what you were doing, what would be your 5 other careers? And of course I would write them down thinking I'm never going to do those. Well, those darn things have shown up. And it was crazy. So I encourage people, write it down because you never know. There's power in writing it down, and they just may show up for you. So I had a chance to consider party planning, which was one of them. Oh, we didn't necessarily talk yet about it. I did have a chance to become an author. of a children's book a project that I've done with my granddaughters, which features my photography, which being a photographer would be one of my other careers too, and their imagination. And we launched that book last fall, and it's available now on Amazon, at the Valley Bookseller in Stillwater, and the Red Balloon Bookstore in St. Paul, called The Cloud Book of Wonder.
What's the name?
The Cloud Book of Wonder.
The Cloud Book of Wonder. Okay. Give us a little bit of a backstory to what the book's about, and so folks might want to go out and buy it.
Yeah, it's it's basically about cloud gazing, and when you look up, when you look up at a cloud, what do you see? So have you, Rick? Have you ever seen a cloud driving a mouse driving a cloud car?
I don't know that I've necessarily seen that, but I've seen other things.
Well, that was one of the things my granddaughter saw. And so then what we do is we ask people, what do you see in the cloud? Because we want you to see what you see. Yeah. And then we turn the page and tell you what my granddaughter saw.
Okay.
And because I've always believed in kids are the best storytellers, that they, I've often been curious as to why some children's books make it where they make it, because they don't seem to appeal. So we ask a few prompt questions to interact with the reader and kind of create more of the story. So, so that's the book.
And then again, remind everybody the title one more time so they can pick it up.
The book is The Cloud Book of Wonder.
Okay. And the sites, again, there was some bookstores and online.
Yeah, I am very appreciative to both Valley Bookseller in Stillwater and the Red Balloon Bookshop in St. Paul. They have it on consignment. And then it's available on Amazon as well from the company that I worked with. That was a 3+ year project. That was quite the interesting experience.
And your grandchildren, you have several year gap between the two. So this project you were working with both of your grandchildren, or just the older one, or just the younger one?
At the time we did the bulk of it, it was mostly with the older one, who was about 8 at that time, 7 or 8.
Okay.
But the younger one is incorporated in it a little bit because of the fact that it took us 3+ years to get there.
Sure. So back to the family business, because that was such a big part of your life, your father being your mentor, the learnings that you had over the years, and then having that be the foundation for this second act, and taking what you've learned there and expanding upon it and making it even big and better. As you look backward, what do you think are the top couple of takeaways that you learned from working in a family business?
So I still believe in and love family businesses. And I don't know if my point of view is shared very often, but I really see family businesses as a square peg that we as a society force into a round hole. And I would like to be able to change that and support family businesses for their uniqueness and their challenges. And part of how I envision the lessons that I've learned to do that is, I think we way underestimate our story. And there could be benefits in really understanding family story. And I'm talking about every person in the family, and going back to that coaching piece of unpacking it. Because no matter what we do, we are who we are, and that's not going to change, and especially the dynamic within the family. So if you understand that that's going to be how it's going to show up in the business, then you can make more intentional, you can take more intentional goals and actions to how you're going to complement that and work with it.
Okay.
So that was a big takeaway. And I have that conversation with all my Sbdc clients that are families or couples. We talk a lot about the roles too that they play. And a huge fan of traction, again, the people component, the get it, want it, capacity to do it, the right people, the right seat. I also try to incorporate in these conversations around this role piece, the strength finders assessments
Yep.
that Marcus Buckingham, was so powerful in, like, match strengths to strengths. And it's like, oh, what a genius idea to match strengths to strengths. So I think that's an important takeaway, because often I think in family businesses, there's what we're good at and what's our natural abilities, and there's what we want to do. It can be a little bit of a gap, and it can cause a little bit of a, it can set you up for a lot of problems.
Sure.
And so I think that's a big takeaway. And then establish early on a communication strategy. Don't take it for granted because it's familiar. We're family. We think we don't have to necessarily be as purposeful about that. And I think it is important to be purposeful about it as a takeaway now. Again, incorporating the 4 agreement piece, you don't want to assume, but in communication and within the family, you're communicating through your own story. So it's an important piece to establish that piece. And then I had the good fortune of, with the Sbdc work, we have continuous learning programs once a year. And I was, one of the programs that we experienced was the Exit Planning Institute came in and trained us.
Yep.
And so that would be a big takeaway too, is even if you're thinking you're in a lifestyle business, write up those exit plans and revisit them so that you have a couple of different options.
Yep. So I am right there with you on traction, strength finder, working on the communication strategies and the stories, exit planning, institute training, done all those things, love all those things. Curious, going back to EOS and traction, are you actually an implementer or just a user and fan?
A user and fan.
Okay. All right. And then strengths finder, which of your strengths you think resonates with you most and that you utilize most with the career that you've built for yourself?
Belief and responsibility would be 2 of my top, probably. I also am relator, maximizer, and arranger.
Mm-hmm.
But belief in myself was a big one. And then I'm very responsible. I take responsibility to heart.
How much, back to your family of origin, you said you were the oldest girl. How much age difference between you and the oldest child?
4 years.
Okay. I think, in understanding birth order, I think when you start to go to like 5 or up, that's enough of a gap that you would have tendencies to be firstborn. But at 4 years, kind of borderline. So I don't know, you said you're into the self-awareness stuff. So if you dig into that birth order thing and you learn something interesting, call me up and let me know. All right.
Yeah. Well, it was a little bit interesting, not to, my poor brother, he was the perfect child. And so I had to like rewrite all the rules when I came along. So.
And did he show as much interest in the family business as you, or not as much?
Oh, all my siblings are in the family business.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
3 of them are at the restaurant and 1 was at the supply company.
Okay. So you mentioned the Sbdc, which stands for the Small Business Development Center at St. Thomas. Talk a little bit more about your work there.
It's amazing. I have so much, I just feel so honored and privileged to be an advisor there. There's so many stories I could tell you. I love it. The work keeps my business skills sharp. I am introduced to all these new industries, it's really fascinating to me how much there's just a basic core around business that can be adapted from industry to industry. I think sometimes we feel locked into a certain industry, and I don't know that that's the case because there's so many, there's so much the same. Hundreds and hundreds of wonderful people with really cool ideas. We work on determining if their business ideas are viable, feasible, write a lot of business plans, do a lot of projections, work on strategy. When there are startup businesses, we talk about funding options. I work on their sales, their marketing, the people pieces of it. There's
And how-
hardly, I'm a huge, and when if it's not a startup and it's more an existing business, or once you get startup, I can be a good account buddy, they call me. They like to have that regular check-in. One of the things that I work on a lot with them too is to define their professional team. We talk a lot about how as entrepreneurs, we always want to do it all alone. We think we have to do it all alone, but it's really hard to do it all alone. And so the professional team, I always encourage them to create, has to do with skill sets that usually aren't our strengths, you know, so accounting and finance and legal, insurance. A big one again on the brand identity piece that goes to my whole marketing and story piece, that they take time to really develop that, because the saying still applies, you only get one chance to make a first impression. And then just, can you imagine, like some of the really cool stories are, I have a lady that bought a city bus as her art studio and travels around teaching people what she does. I have a 78-year-old lady that wanted to give back as a caring connection to people. Just, oh my gosh. I have a brick and mortar that opened right as the pandemic was starting. That's all about creating a toxic-free lifestyle. Healthcare people, landscapers, gardeners, a number of different services, children's with a gymnastic teacher that combines the gymnastics and yoga. A lady that, again, during the pandemic, she created a streaming workout that combines mind and body to help minimize the aging and dementia, the progression of dementia. I mean, a vegan bodega that is now working on funding to be a significant vegan grocery store here in the Twin Cities. Of course, with my food and beverage background, I get a lot of food, beverage, restaurants, things like that. So I've been really fortunate to be connected with over a couple hundred or so different businesses, and it's super rewarding. It's a great program, sponsored by the SBA and the Deed of Minnesota. We're a free resource to all these people.
And when all these people, is it to anyone, or do they have to have a tie to St. Thomas?
No, there's a qualification process, but it's not a tie to St. Thomas. You just have to fill out an application, and then the director will, approve or disapprove you. And I don't know exactly what that entails. And then she'll connect you with the right advisor. I'm one of 6. My niche is not a niche. I tend to be more full spectrum, but other advisors have have more niches. Like we do have on the Sbdc team, a lawyer, digital marketing person, somebody that's connected to helping with financing, and a lady that's really passionate about sales and marketing. So I get maybe 1 to 2 a week, but during the heat of the pandemic, I was getting 1 to 2 a day.
Wow.
And it was super interesting that a lot of what I was getting was new startups versus the people that were trying to work through the programs that were being offered, because we were a support system to a lot of those programs.
So how does one go about learning about the SBDC? Where can they get information? Where can they get that application, so forth?
It's pretty easily available, I believe, through the SBD site, the D to Minnesota site. It's also available through the St. Thomas site. That's how I found them. I actually had, I'll be really quick. I actually had someone refer me to them to help me with my startup ReImagine Possibilities. And when I went to review it on the St. Thomas site, I'm like, no, I want to be an advisor.
Well, that's fun.
And so I went in and talked to the directors and said, I think I can help you.
That's fun. Nice. And how much of your time are you spending on that now?
I am spending a pretty big chunk right now on
Okay.
that. Probably half my week.
Okay. And then speaking of the SBDC, talk to us a little bit about support.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about support, and when I start talking about a subject, I like to read a definition. So do you mind if I read the definition?
Absolutely.
All right. And support seems to be a very expansive topic because there's like a big definition here. It starts with to endure bravely or quietly, bear. To promote the interests or cause of, to uphold or defend as valid or right. To act with, to bid and bridge so as to show support, to provide with substantiation, to pay the costs of, we all know that kind of support, to provide a basis for the existence or substance, to hold up or serve as a foundation or prop for, to keep from fainting, yielding or losing courage, to keep something going. So there's a lot that goes into support. And I think that it's important to understand support because I'm the type of person that is pretty independent and I'm not very good at taking it from others. And so, and I think now over the last few years, I've really expanded upon the idea that no, we all need it and we need it all the time. So I think it's an interesting concept that way. And again, as I was talking about, with the SBDC clients, I talk about how they need to build that big a team. I also feel compelled to write about support for executives. I think that a one-on-one support system is valuable tremendously for executives. And I know that like a lot of executives, we think that, and we belong to groups and they're great. The peer group things are great. They give a lot of value. We have people that are in our lives that are our loved ones that are truly supportive and on our team. But very often I think that an executive might err on the side of speaking within their companies because it's a common ground. You don't have to get people caught up to speed. Or you might speak within your industry because again, you have a common ground. There's not as much to explain. And that might not always be the wisest decision. And so to have a confidant that is supportive one-on-one to you, your dedicated person that gets it, because I know like that's the difference is like a lot of having the business background. Also, I am that person. I am that executive that maybe in retrospect now was lonely sometimes and could have benefited from having somebody to talk some of these things through. So.
Right. So you talked a little bit about understanding that support, who needs it, when's it relevant. Maybe dive into that a little bit more.
Well, I think there's also a paradox in support. So I think the paradox in support is that to receive it, you have to give it. And to give it, you have to receive it. So I have this newfound respect for support in the sense as well, is that it's kind of like a balanced scale. And that if one side is tipped too far, or leaned on too far, it's gonna tip over. So I think it's an interesting circle. And then
Mhm.
I guess the other piece is it was incredible the amount of support that I got when I was no longer in my role in hospitality and I started networking. It was amazing how many people wanted to be supportive. And I would be referred to someone, and then they would refer to me three more people, and then they would say, "Oh, you should try to have coffee with so and so, or you should go to this networking event." And so I think it's really powerful the amount of support people want to give each other. And of course, you were one of those significant people for me.
Well, we both learned from our interactions with one another, and so like you said, if you give, you receive, and if you receive, you're also giving. So,
Yeah.
what about your kind of overall career journey? A lot of interesting things, going back to learnings from your father, and growing up in the family business, and now all the stuff that you're learning from the interaction with the St. Thomas group. What about kind of overall lessons that you've learned on your career? What maybe was an important lesson, or lessons plural, that you wish you would have learned sooner?
So I think I did have it as part of my career, but not to the dynamic I do now, is the idea around position for success. So position for success is like a daily mantra now. I probably say it both professionally and personally half a dozen times in a day. So that was a big one. And then kind of maybe beating up the theme about the story. Because I really believe that if I understood my story better, I would have seen some of the things that have come up. So that's why it's so important that you understand your story and you respect it and not try to alter it or rewrite, because it is what it is. I I think because it happened to me and I've seen it happen to too many other people. It's been especially a couple of good friends of mine lately that no job is guaranteed, so have that backup plan. Like we were already kind of talking about those other 5 careers.
Right.
And or dreams, I guess at this stage in my life, it would be more about wishes and dreams that maybe you didn't have a chance to fulfill
Mm-hmm.
and the means to adapt to that, particularly financially. And then I have a new it brews up a whole new and it's a whole other conversation about perspectives of leadership and loyalty. That's a big one for me.
Okay. So now you're working with your son. Kind of a related question. What, if anything, have you put in front of your son as the key message or compass for him? So if you're trying to boil down how you've tried to share your experiences with your son and or direct his experience, is there one key thing, or maybe it's a couple?
It goes back to the two that we were talking about, the roles and the communication. So I try to make sure, and part of the piece of the roles is what authorities and responsibilities each other has. Because especially in family, you want to you want to have those authorities. You don't want to always be answering to the
Mm.
sibling, the parent, the
Sure.
you need to have your own space. So it's important to have those roles defined. And then again, the communication.
Hmm. Okay. And then for our audience today, if there was one thing that you'd like to leave with them, what would that be?
So I'm sure nothing I have said today has been too terribly earth-shattering or new, but the one takeaway I guess I would really hope people would think about is that well-meaning support in whatever form can be more about strength than weakness, and a blessing to be able to give it unconditionally and a game changer to receive it selflessly. And I'm curious for people, how is support showing up in your life and where are you getting it from? And maybe if so motivated today, call, text, email, or send a written card thanking that person or people for being there for you.
Hmm. All right, Christina, thank you very much for sharing some of your story with us today. I know there's more here. I'd like to have you back, assuming that you'd be willing. And then tell everybody, what is your email address? I know it's in the comments field, but some people are listening to on the podcast. But why don't you give everybody your email address so they can seek you out?
So my email is Christina CH and at ReImagine Possibilities, all one word, .com.
Okay, so again, Christina at reimaginepossibilities.com. Thank you very much, Christina.
Thank you so much.
Your
This was
story.
really,
Did you have fun?
I did have fun, and I was able to go back to my natural just talking.
All right. And then if I ask nicely and attach, please, would you come back and join us again sometime?
Oh my gosh, I am totally touched that you would want me to. So I would love to. If I can bring value to you and your audience, I would love it.
All right. Well, thank you again, Christina. Tell everybody one more time how they can get a hold of you.
Christina at reimaginepossibilities.com.
All right. Thank you very much, Christina. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.